do you describe your best friend growing up? I met Mike Peters in the first grade. He was just a scrawny carrot-top kid, and I was a scrawny kid with a cowlick, and we both rode our bikes everywhere. I guess that's the thing I remember most about elementary school, was that we both had a Stingray bicycle, and we rode them almost everywhere we went. In junior high, we graduated to riding on the bus, and we had many adventures riding to Yucca Middle School on that bus. But then I got my motorcycle, and then we rode everywhere together on my motorcycle. It was a Sears motorcycle that cost $250, and we didn't have helmets, so we spent a lot of time taking evasive action with regard to law enforcement vehicles in the area, and had many a wild goose chase. And Mike told me later that he always felt safe on that motorcycle, even when we were running from the cops. But when we were in the car together, I scared him. I guess that was justified, considering the scar that he had on his chin came from an accident when I was driving, actually before I got my driver's license. In high school, we played football, chased girls, were in musicals, and spent most of our free time together. Until the day came when we were accepted to go to Baylor University together. We were both very excited to be leaving, and I can still remember the day that we left for college in Mike's new car. And all along the way, we rolled down the windows and played the music loud and sang Free at Last, and were so excited that we were finally going to be on our own. Our days at Baylor were filled with lots of crazy things involving eggs and firecrackers and water balloons and shaving creams. But I guess one memory from college that stands out is that, as most of you who know Mike well know, he tended to keep odd hours and sometimes got inverted between night and day. But at Baylor, all the classes were in the daytime, and so he had to get to class sometimes in the morning, and so he commissioned me to make sure that he got up and went to school. And the way that I accomplished that was with a squirt gun. I would just stand about 15 or 20 feet away with a good squirt gun and keep squirting him until he got out of bed, usually with significant anger and frustration because he had changed his mind and didn't want to go. But he went, usually fairly wet. Our days together at Baylor and then Baylor Law School were wonderful times from which I have many wonderful memories. Mike was a great friend to me, and I loved him very much. He was a kind, loyal, fun-loving, and generous man. He was a man of faith who held deep convictions of his relationship to God through Jesus Christ. As we grew older, our lives drifted apart, but our friendship and the close bond that I felt for Mike never wavered or diminished, even though we seldom saw each other. When we did see each other, Mike was always the same warm, kind, and thoughtful friend that he had always been. Mike's untimely death is a very sad and difficult thing, certainly most of all for Kathy and Alexander. But I know he's in a better place and that he's at peace and rest with God. And so I can simply say that I will miss him and that I loved him very much.
Mike always loved telling the story how the two of us had chased each other around the country for years, long before we had ever met. We both had lived in Dallas, New York City, and Los Angeles at the same time before finally meeting in a 1999 Albuquerque business meeting. Soon we were bumping into each other, and I eventually invited him to join an acting class I was teaching. I knew he had studied acting in New York and thought he needed the creative outlet. He was quite good and really didn't need me to teach him acting. I think he probably knew that. We slowly got to know each other as friends, often having a bite to eat after class. We spent a lot of time talking, and in fact, talked several times a day even after marriage. I think we just really liked each other. I cherished Mike's exceptional kindness, his intelligence, interest in the arts, and genuine love of God, all of which drew us together and kept us together. Before a year had gone by, without either of us being aware of it, we came to the conclusion that we were dating. We first fell into like and then into love. Soon the time came and Mike the romantic began searching for the ideal setting to propose marriage so that we would be engaged while traveling to Hawaii to celebrate his parents' 50th anniversary. Unfortunately, 1 week prior, I broke my foot. Undaunted, Mike hired a horse-drawn carriage at Tamaya, which took us through the beautiful bosque. There I was lifted from the carriage and Mike proposed on one knee. After I accepted, we rode to the restaurant where a dozen long-stemmed red roses waited at our table. The rest of the night is a blur. So after a few years of getting to know each other, we married on December 6, 2002. We had a fairy tale wedding which was in sharp contrast to the difficult years ahead. We both worked very hard with our respective businesses, suffering together through floods, fires, deaths, illnesses, celebrating anniversaries, birthdays, successes, and accomplishments, both big and small, all the while just wanting to have a normal family life. I loved how much pride Mike took in his legal practice. He was an awfully good lawyer. He was always putting in extra time and effort to make sure his clients' documents were perfect. He always treated his clients as people he truly cared about, and they loved him for it. In between work and disasters, we managed to take a few memorable trips, including a couple of trips to Europe. Mike was so excited to be in Italy, seeing some of the greatest architecture and art in the world, and eating some of the best food and wine he'd ever tasted. It was such a delight to be with him and watch him take it all in with total enthusiasm. But the greatest accomplishment of our marriage was also the most difficult. News of little Alexander Michael finally entered our lives at the end of 2010. Mike couldn't imagine life without the baby, so off we went. 2 trips to Russia and a third for me, but we finally got Alexander in May of 2011 and a new chapter to our lives. Neither of us knew how challenging parenthood could be, even with Alexander being a great, easygoing baby. Michael would get up in the middle of the night and put the baby back to sleep with no problem. After everything I tried had been futile. Mike would calmly go into the baby's room, and within minutes, the baby was asleep. Mike was crazy about his son. Sometimes he would just stop what he was doing and say, "You know, you are so cute." Mike has always been the calming force in the house. He would walk into the house, the baby would scream, "Papa!" and in Mike would come into Alexander's room. Misha adored his papa. We would sit together for a little while with the baby, pray together, and then I would leave with Misha on Papa's lap. The two of them would read together and cuddle. Then Papa would put Misha down without a peep and sit in the blue chair for about 20 minutes while Alexander would fall asleep. Sometimes Mike fell asleep in the chair as well, and I would peek in to find both of them snoring. I am so deeply saddened that Misha will never get the privilege of really knowing Mike, who gave him life, who gave him love, and who delighted in him and would teach him numbers, drawing, and the fine art of logic. I am also so sad that Misha will not benefit from Michael's greatest strength, the gentleness of spirit. I already miss Mike so much. We were together for such a short time. I so much want to talk to him, tell him about my day, and to see him smile. It's strangely satisfying to know that Mike could not wait to meet the Lord. He was excited about it and not at all afraid of death. Some things in this life are terribly confusing and can only be understood by faith and trust. I do know Mike is with the Lord. I know someday we will see each other again. I only wish he could have had a few more years with us here on this earth.